Welcome to the Victorious POD podcast with your hosts, Jack Vickers and Tyler Herman.
What up, Pod Squad? Welcome back for another edition, a much more prepared edition, a much more fancy, technologically prepared edition. For joining us this time, we are on Season 7, Episode 2. If you didn't catch Episode 1, we're going to discuss it in a bit, but we are on Episode 104 total, so we're going to be doing a mock draft 2.0 tonight. We're going to also do a little divisional preview, breakdown, teams we like, teams we don't like. We're going to get some crazy, spicy takes going as well. But first off, Tyler, let me ask you a question here.
Okay.
Totally normal question. I'm sure everybody's had these conversations around the water cooler before. But hypothetically, which of these would you rather have to do? And let's be clear, these are inconveniences or punishments. So would you rather every time you had to drive your car, walk a mile to get to wherever your car was parked? Or would you rather have to, once per month, you would have to change one tire on your car, but you would have no notice that it was happening?
Ooh. I'm definitely changing the tire.
Okay.
I think once a month, I can handle that. And again, I've changed plenty of tires in my day. I get if you don't know how to change a tire, that would be a major inconvenience. But I've done it enough. I'm pretty good at it. I can handle it. To walk a mile, if you think every time that you need to use your car, you need to walk a mile, there is no chance. I will be inconvenienced once a month rather than walking a mile to get to my car. Every morning I have to go to work. Think about
That's
it like
fair.
that. Like every day you go to the grocery store, got to pick up the kids. I got to walk a mile after work to go pick up the kids from daycare, bring them to the pool. No, I'll take the once a month.
Let me make this clear. It's a very different question when you work from home like myself. So I was like, that's not that bad, whatever. There'd probably be a lot more situations of, Christine, can you drive us, please? I don't want to drive today. But I've changed, I think, 2 tires myself in my life. Let me say that I would get very good at it and learn how to do it. But the part that scares me is just the fact that it's unplanned. You're just like, you could be like, oh, I got 5 minutes to get to this thing. By the way, your tire's flat. Change it now. Like, I don't know. I came across that, and it was a once a week you'd have to change a tire, and I'm like, that's too much. So I bumped it up to a month. Is the line for you like every 2 weeks? What's the cutoff here?
Yeah, I was going to say probably once a week would be pushing it. Once every couple weeks, I think I'd still take that. A mile is not something I'm trying to do every time I think that I'm going to open my car door.
It's longer than people think.
Way.
Like, yeah, I mean, I guess you get in good shape.
You'd certainly be in good shape, but the amount of time it would take you to walk or run a mile, I mean, you think you walk a mile in 13, 14 minutes, maybe. I mean, I'm not saying it wouldn't take me that long to change a tire, but I'm going to get a lot less sweaty, honestly, changing a tire if you know what you're doing, rather than walking a mile every single time. So about once a week, I think it would be close, but once a month, I'm definitely taking the changing the tire once a month.
That's fair. All right, well, kicking it off with the hard-hitting questions as always. I bring you guys nothing but the best. So
thanks for tuning in. That's what we're here for, right?
We're gonna keep Tyler on his toes every week. I just got to come up with absurd, non-fantasy stuff before we dive in. So, real quick, as always, hop in the Discord if you haven't already. We're gonna get a little bit more active with that once we get the actual season getting going. So you can leave questions or reactions there, stuff you want to hear us talk about. YouTube, 115 subscribers. So please subscribe if you haven't already, even if you're not waiting for every single episode to come out. It still helps us. Handles our official one now with youtube.com/@thevictoriouspod. As I mentioned at the top, this is technically episode 2 of the new season. We had a 2-parter where we had a ton of stuff on our last episode talking about my guys, some like wild card picks, some diamonds in the rough. We had a bunch of different stuff kind of going on. So go check that out. And then we did a second half of that with the mock draft number 1. So really good fantasy content, especially with all of you guys probably coming up on your drafts. These next 2 weekends are the most popular. So go check those out. Watch them, listen to them on Spotify if you're driving, or if you want to listen to them at work like Ben, who slacks off. That's also a big help. Whatever you want to do. This is our official last bi-weekly episode. So we'll come 2 weeks from now is where we're going to kick it off every week leading up to the season. So we'll start doing week 1 previews and get a little bit more into it from there. So that's all the boring stuff. Perfect timing because news actually broke for us doing an episode, which was great. So for those of you that haven't seen yet, if you haven't seen by the time this episode comes out, I don't know what to tell you. But the Jonathan Taylor saga continues. So being our resident Jonathan Taylor owner in Dynasty, I'm just going to let Tyler kind of fill everybody in here.
Yeah, so the Colts just about an hour or two ago are now allowing Jonathan Taylor to go look for a trade. They're open to it. Surprisingly, it sounds like they're really only looking for, not only obviously, but they're only looking for 1 first-round pick, or essentially 2 picks equivalent to a first round. However, NFL GMs figured that piece out. I thought that was really surprising for somebody who's only 24 and hasn't even gotten a second contract yet. But obviously he's unhappy in Indy. So what I texted you just before is that it sounds like the Dolphins are going to kick the tires. So that could be a ridiculous backfield, already a semi 3-headed monster there. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor better than all 3 are there. Big damper to Devon A-Chain if he goes there. But just wanted to get your initial thoughts when I texted that.
Yeah, back when we were talking like the NFL draft season, the Dolphins were the number 1 destination I was banging the drum for. Like, please draft Charbonnet or let Gibbs or somebody land there. Like, that was ripe to be like, we're going to bring in our guy and have it be a fantasy gold mine. Granted, they did bring in A-Chain like you talked about, but it's enough where it's like, I don't think he quite had the capital to say it's his backfield. So something like Jonathan Taylor goes there. I think it's basically fantasy-wise, I think it's a lateral move. Like you said, he's still going to be the number 1. I don't think there's really anywhere he's going to go where he's going to increase his fantasy value, because before the holdout, he was a first-round pick. But at this point, we're just hoping for places that get some clarity so you can actually draft him and not be terrified. So anywhere that's not, another solid running back would be great. I know I've seen a few other people talk about the Bills being another destination. I just don't know that they would ever actually give up enough to do it. But, the Chiefs are always tossed out because everybody wants there to be a fantasy relevant running back there. But I really don't know where else besides the Dolphins and maybe them makes sense. So I think the realistic, most likely situation is still probably that he ends up staying with the Colts because somebody doesn't want to pay that much. But does it turn into a half the year holdout situation? Does it turn into teams offering and then the Colts trying to rework a contract? I don't know. It's what's crazy to me is that literally we went from like a week ago even to being like, we're not going to trade him ever, even if there's a fire, to now like, well, okay, you can go ahead. And so, that
escalated quickly.
That's how things work. So it's a fluid situation. We'll continue monitoring it. Based on this really quick, because I'm going to ask the same about the other 2. At what point do you feel, I don't want to say confident, but at what point would you draft Jonathan Taylor given the question marks currently?
Honestly, just because he's disgruntled, I don't think that means he doesn't play. I think, because remember, he's already signed the contract, so it's not like he doesn't want to play or isn't willing to play. He's not in the Josh Jacobs territory. He's under contract now, so he's going to play. So I am plenty fine with him in honestly the mid to back end of the second round. And I've seen him go in the 3rd. And Ryan actually texted me the other day, my other brother, and he was playing in a Gilly League, and he was available in the 5th round. That's way too much. That's way too much. Yeah, I thought that was absolutely absurd. But no, I'm still fine with him in the mid to back end second. No problem.
Yeah, I feel like, I guess just, again, speaking as somebody who has the 104 in our league coming back with the 210, he's not going past that point. Like, he should be going late second at least. If I had, like, say, the 205, 206, I think there's enough other really, really good players that I would pick somebody else there just to be a sure thing. Mm-hmm. But it becomes a point where, like, yeah, you're not going to feel comfortable and you're going to sweat it out the entire time. But, like, you have to assume that he plays somewhere, whether the trade gets worked out and he becomes the guy. Like, you're not going to give up first-round draft capital for a running back and then say, okay, go do a 50-50 timeshare. Like, you better use him. So, like, I think I would have to at that point. But it's going to go from me having a very solid draft plan to, oh, my God, this entire thing's a house of cards and I'm scared. So, yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Moving into other running back news, still exciting, but not quite as exciting as that. Dalvin Cook, we talked about in our last episode, he was likely to sign with the Jets. He did indeed end up doing that. Got a 1-year deal with them for $7 million on the baseline. It was announced that it was up to 8.6, and everybody was like, it's probably $2 million and a bunch of incentives. No, he gets $7 million whether he does nothing from here on. So that was surprising. The Jets cleared a decent amount of cap with Rodgers' movement, which seemed weird because he took a pretty substantial pay cut just to sign a running back. And it was like, you could have gotten him for probably less, but you gave him more because you had the money and there's really nobody else to give the money to. So that seemed weird. So for me personally, the money seemed very, very odd. But as far as fantasy fallout wise, we'll kind of do the same thing as JT. Where does this bump Breece Hall down for you, if it does at all?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely bumps him down. Dalvin showed plenty of skills the last couple of years, so I don't think he has fallen off quite like the Zeke signing we'll talk about in a second. Dalvin's still looking prime, honestly. So I think it certainly moves Breece down. I think it really could end up as a closer to 50-50 timeshare the first half of the season. It just allows them, again, to not rush Breece Hall back, in my opinion. So I would honestly, I've seen Breece drop down to like third and fourth rounds. And I mean, I think that's about right. Again, with them not trying to push him to get back. They say he looks good, which is great. But again, you didn't sign Dalvin for $7 million and up to $9 million to have him play 20% of the snaps. So I think it's certainly going to affect Breece, and maybe Breece takes over by the end of the season. But that's a lot of money to pay somebody to sit on the sideline.
Right. I would agree with that. I think for me personally, like his ADP before the Cook signing was around 28, so like kind of started the third. And I think a lot of that was just affected by the injury. Like had he been healthy, he'd probably be more of like a mid to high second at least, I would assume. Even in like the first couple of days of the fallout, it's fallen down to 34-ish, so it's, back of the third. I don't know if there's anywhere in the third that I would be comfortable using my pick there. I think if I had an early fourth, I would take the shot because then you got 2 to 3, probably 1 to 2 other running backs and another receiver or two that you feel solid baseline wise. But yeah, I think even before the Cook signing, I was worried about Breece starting off the season slow. So this doesn't help that. I'm not as much in the camp. A lot of people are like saying, we've had a couple of people in our league talk about Cook coming in there and being the guy right off the bat, or even 50-50. I'm not quite even on that level. I still think this is very much their plan is Breece is the guy, but I think it just, like I said before in our last episode, it shows more of they're going to take it slow. Like you said, they're just going to not have to rush it because they have playoff expectations with this team. And I think if Breece is fully healthy by week 6, 7, I think keeping him fresh for the playoffs will be their goal. But yeah, I'm skeptical to draft Breece now. Like I said, that's where I'm comfortable at is probably early fourth. I think he will probably go earlier than I'm comfortable doing it because somebody will take a shot, or in your home league, somebody won't really pay attention to the injury recovery stuff. So that I'm probably out on. It probably pretty much solidifies I'm not going to have Breece on any of my teams this year. As far as Cook, I expect his ADP to fluctuate because people were drafting him without a team, just like all these other running backs. But his ADP was at 62, so like just pushing over into the start of the 6th round. I don't know how much you expect it to go up from there, but where do you think he should be drafted, and how high do you think his ADP will climb?
Yeah, that's a good question again, just because I think Dalvin has been solid. So I certainly think it's going to rise. I don't know that it's going to get too astronomical. I don't think he's going to move up to like a 4th round or anything like that. But I honestly don't know where I would take him. And simply because I think of like the 5th and 6th round, I'm probably looking at the other guys in that territory and still taking them over Dalvin. And simply not because I think Dalvin is going to not be productive. I'm thinking of more so the back end of your schedule when you're trying to get wins and into the playoffs. That is going to be when Breece is the most healthy. So I'm not trying to have somebody on my team like Dalvin who's going to have early season value and then start to tank that as we get into playoffs and when it matters most.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I just quick pulled up ADP around that same range. A few of the guys ahead of him, Alexander Madison, the guy that's replacing him, Christian Watson, Cam Akers. You got Javonte Williams, who's kind of in the same situation of not knowing where to evaluate him. And then Drake London, all guys right before him. A couple of guys after, Mike Williams, Rashad White, James Conner, and Chris Godwin. I feel like there's a lot of guys in there I would probably go with Cook over, but there's enough that I guess I don't love either, where maybe that's just kind of the cutoff. Like I'd probably take Dalvin Cook over Rashad White, but I'm not a believer in him this year. Yeah. But I would 100% take like a James Conner or probably even a Chris Godwin, depending on the wide receiver situation for my team, over the uncertainty of Cook. So it's, and that's where he's currently at. That's if he doesn't jump. Like if he's in the early 6th now, like you said, I don't think he gets to the 4th, but I could see him jumping close to a full round and be like early 5th. So like I'm probably out on the Jets backfield is long story short what I'm saying. So
I'm with you. I'm 100% taking Cam Akers over him. I'm taking Javonte Williams over him. A couple of those receivers you mentioned certainly as well. So it's too wishy-washy of a backfield for me to again spend that top 5, 6 round pick on somebody who could be a solid starter for my team. And it's too much unknown for me likely to. So I'll probably be out as well.
Yeah. Moving into more over-the-hill running backs signing to mess up great young backfields. Ezekiel Elliott signed with the Patriots for a 1-year deal up to $6 million, but this is the one that I expected Cooks to be, where most of this is just incentives. I think he gets like 1.2 guaranteed, and everything else is like performance-based or games played or blah, blah, blah. So a little bit less, commitment, but still enough of a relevant one to talk about, because Ramondre was kind of one of like the value guys, even in the early third where he was being drafted. So same question. I'll leave it kind of up to you with the Dalvin Cook, Breece Hall one. Same here with Zeke and Ramondre. Based on where I have their ADPs written in here, how do you think this affects it, and where should it be?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it really doesn't change Ramondre that much. I get the biggest thing is the goal line work, and Zeke, that's what he's good at. He's good at getting 2 yards. So I get that's going to affect it, but I think Ramondre is insulated enough with his receiving work that he's going to get, and he can score on some of those big plays. Like what you projected him for 7 rushing touchdowns previously, and now you project him for 4 or 5. I don't think it drops him enough to be like, oh, hey, he was a early third round pick to now get end of the third, early fourth. I don't think that. I think that's too drastic. I don't think Zeke is that good. I still think Ramondre is going to get 70-30, probably even potentially more with passing down work. So it doesn't drop Ramondre honestly at all for me.
Yeah, for me, it's the only thing you mentioned is just limiting his scoring upside with the touchdowns. I think that was the only thing that could have made him like jump from where he's at to potentially being one of the dark horse, like top 5 running backs that comes out of nowhere.
Fair.
I don't think that happens now because of this, which sucks, but I think I wouldn't be surprised at all if he finishes like a RB8, RB10 kind of thing. He's a guy that I'm super in love with. If you're kind of on like the 2-3 turn, like have one of the earlier picks and you can get him in your third round, I am a big fan of that this year. So if I could start my draft with 2 other guys and then get Ramondre in the third round, it's not going to scare me away with Zeke. It'll, like I said, bum me out a little bit more. But Zeke's ADP is 130, so I mean, I guess he's as good of a late dart throw as anybody, but he's not a guy that's like the late guys. I like to take people that have a path to becoming relevant, or if it doesn't work out, you can just cut him after a couple of weeks. I think Zeke is going to be one of those that 3 to 4 weeks in the year, he's going to have 12 points in a week, and you're going to be like, oh, wow, great. And then every other week, he's going to have like 4. So it's just, you can keep him. He might finish ahead of his ADP and I guess be a value, but like I am probably out even in the 11th round. I think there's other younger like dart throw guys with upside that I would personally take. So even if he doesn't rise, I'm out.
Yeah. My exact thought on that is something we'll actually get into a little bit later, but I certainly like him more in like a best ball scenario where you don't have to pick and choose when to start him. Again, obviously, you understand he's going to have extreme value. I guess not extreme value. We'll see. He'll have great value if something happens to Ramondre and he gets hurt. Everybody understands that, but you're not drafting for injury ever. So I'm not going to get Zeke to say, oh, Ramondre is going to get hurt and then he's going to be a league winner. Don't do that. So something like best ball is the way to get Zeke and get those. He's got 6 yards in 2 touchdown games, and you don't have to pick and choose when.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. That's fair. No other super exciting NFL news. I won't talk about every little tiny injury and people sitting out of training camp and boring stuff. So we're going to move on to the fan interaction side here. Kicking things off. As always, if you want to leave anything in the Discord, YouTube, social media stuff, any kind of comments, especially YouTube, we like to read those. So we had a decent amount of interactions based on some of the shorts Tyler posted from people that I don't know. So I'm assuming they're just whoever, but shout out to them if they happen to be listening to the main show. Nathaniel Smith basically said, long story short, I'm summarizing. He thinks that all Chiefs wide receivers are going to be getting the ball pushed downfield. Like he believes this is the year that Chiefs wide receivers are going to be doing something. So I saw you responded. I don't know if you want to weigh in your 2 cents quickly, but
yeah, I said for me, it's more so not that Mahomes doesn't push the ball down the field. It's just for fantasy wise, he spreads the ball around so much. And Travis Kelce, everything runs through him. Andy Reid's an exceptionally creative play caller, and so it's great. And again, it's one of those wide receiver rooms that you're like, who's it going to be on any given week? I have absolutely no idea. So for me, there's no one outside of Travis Kelce in that receiving room that I want to be tied to, just because I never know when it's going to happen.
Another great example of why any of them would probably be a great option in best ball. for that type of reason, because every single week there's going to be one of them that's like, oh, he slipped behind the defense for a 60-yard bomb and then did nothing the rest of the game. So, like, I personally, kind of going off this next comment, but I personally think Sky Moore out of any of them is probably the best option if you're going to throw your chips on anybody. I took him in a best ball and was pretty pumped to get him, but I'm not touching him or anybody in redrafts. So, we had a couple other people comment and weigh in on your video a while back saying that, speaking of Sky Moore, you were saying that basically Rashee Rice, the rookie brought into him, was it's a trap. A trap. Yeah. So not taking him in rookie drafts. We had Keith Wingfield and Aurora Watson. Basically both say that was blasphemy, and Rashee Rice is by far ahead of Sky Moore. Doesn't matter. My thing is, you might be right. He might finish as wide receiver 38 versus 42. Congrats. None of them are going to be relevant. So best ball only exclusives. And then lastly, this one I took a little bit of personal offense to, but Samantha Gale basically said in one of our takes, I was talking about Lamar being great this year, even before the receivers that were brought in, the weapons, and him being healthy, and the contract, and the new offensive coordinator, Todd Monken, blah, blah, blah. She basically just said, Lamar sucks. I'm going to let this year prove it. I'm like, okay, well, he's not that far off from his record-setting MVP year, and even the past couple of years when he's missed a few games, he's been on great pace for QB1. It's just that he's missed some games. So I don't think it's going to prove it, barring another injury, but I appreciate the thoughts. So
yeah, we'll see. We appreciate everyone who watches and comments as well. It's certainly helps us. We hope you enjoy what we put out. If you don't, tell us that as well. Tell us what you do want to see. We like to do a lot of takes. We like to do a lot of player profiles and dynasty things like that as well. So if you guys have any that come up, feel free, send them our way. We're happy to do a lot of fun videos.
Yeah, we're trying to do more of them now, especially this year, now that we kind of have our feet underneath us, and Tyler's been doing some additions on the shorts where it's captions and cool stuff and some highlight reels and things, so they make it a little bit more interesting for you guys to watch. But yeah, we're trying to get more into that, especially too, so that we can just look back halfway through the season and actually have stuff to say, hey, we nailed it, or wow, we were way off. Because last year that was one of the things lacking, was it was like, wow, we didn't really record any of the things we were going to say, and we didn't have that many cool bold predictions. So it was like, well, I can't really take a victory lap on anything. So there's a few really good ones out already. We've got a whole profile from last episode talking about how I'm personally down on Alexander Madison this year for the value. I'm all in. Chips are pushed into the center of the table for Hollywood Brown, and then Tyler talking, basically doubling down on James Cook. So there's three really good shorts, 60 seconds ish to 2 minutes or so for a couple of them. So quick listens, but go and check them out and see, because I think all three of them are key players you're drafting in the middle of your draft. So beyond that, another one I didn't mention, but for any of you guys that love seeing other people suffer, we did post a last place punishment video that our Dynasty League in its inaugural season had our first toilet bowl loser. Our buddy Nick Colburn in our Dynasty League had to do basically a blazing challenge similar to the hot ones. If you guys watch those from like First We Feast, great stuff. So he was interviewed by our league champion of year one and had to answer varying things from along, why'd you make this terrible trade, to what's your favorite 90s outfit and clothing trend that you'd love to bring back. So it was all over the place. Mac did a good job with questions, but Nick was a champ. Go check it out and see how he did, because we took 10, I believe, of the hottest wings across the blazing scale, and he powered through. So, yeah, setting the bar real high for next year, whoever loses. As far as the recap of last episode's round one mock draft, we had a mini sample size vote, and it wasn't close. So apparently I just shot myself in the foot. Tyler ran away with his. We'll have ours posted somewhere. You can go watch the episode too and see what you think of our teams. For the record, we both got B pluses when we put it into the grading scale, so I didn't think my team was that bad. Man, I'm going to draft differently today.
Sorry, Jack.
Yeah,
no,
I suck.
You suck.
I need to draft. I need to draft for clout, or for like other people to like it versus my own. Yeah. I'm going to end this draft being like, I hate this team, and everyone's going to go, oh, it's great, 10 out of 10. So
yeah. That's it. That's how it goes. Give the people what they want.
Yeah. Lastly, we usually cover if there's any like predictions from last episodes or last shorts and stuff that came true. Obviously, we're not in season yet. That'll happen more once we get into the week to weeks. But we also like to talk about if anybody tosses out any questions or debates for us to have on air live. So one was actually from Nate, another one of our buddies in the Dynasty League. We kind of touched on this last week with guys that were wild cards, so I won't cover any of those we've already named. But are there any like red flag guys for you this year that you're just barring them falling ridiculously, that you pretty much just know whenever you're making your list, I'm not taking them. I'm not looking at them in redrafts.
Yeah, I think, again, this is probably where you are in the draft specifically. So for me, I'm, again, we'll say in the 7th pick. So for me, just based on where I'm drafting and based on where I've seen ADP, that almost automatically makes me completely out on any of the top 3 quarterbacks, because I would essentially have to take them with my 2nd round pick. And to get a Mahomes, to get a Josh Allen, to get a Jalen Hurts. So for me, there's enough quarterback value for me to be found later in the 5th and 6th rounds, etc. If you still want one of those top 8 guys. So those 3, again, I think it's very draft dependent on where you're at. But kind of the middle areas of the draft, you're pretty much out on those top quarterbacks. So I guess those have been the guys that I've just completely not done any type of research on. Obviously, you don't really need to do a whole lot, but I've just never planned to get them in the 3rd round. So if I do, I'd be ecstatic. But those guys I've just been kind of out on because I like the value elsewhere.
Yeah, that's fair. I've kind of talked about that in the last episode too, of being out on any of the top 3 quarterbacks for the most part. Mine's I probably wouldn't take any of the 3 if they're still available in the 3rd, unless all 3 happen to be. But for me, I really, really love Justin Fields 2 to 3 rounds later. And then there's so many other guys we've talked about late that there's a lot of other guys that I'm not just okay with, but I genuinely like. So I'm out on those. I talked about kind of that 3rd tier of tight ends last episode with the Goddards, Hawkinsons, Kittles type that I'm probably out on. But as far as just players that I'm out on specifically that aren't position based, I'm very not even looking to take Calvin Ridley no matter what. Just for whatever reason, I don't buy that he's going to have the target share. I've talked about Alexander Madison. I'm finding myself bypassing some of the earlier guys. I'm bypassing Aaron Jones a lot just because I don't know what the Packers offense is going to look like. So stuff like that. There's guys that, they're probably a value at a certain point, but I've just got other people around their areas that I'm he's my target in every single draft in the 5th round. So it's just, I feel despite having different draft picks, different slots I'm picking from this year in a few different leagues, I'm very out on certain people. I've got a blueprint for a lot of mine. I find them following. So whether they're right or wrong, we'll see.
Agreed.
All right. Really quickly, wanted to do a quick little shout out to a few of our unique leagues, ones that are coming up here / already starting. Bunch of people that have already gotten this text either in GroupMe's or wherever else, but we're doing a DFS league this year for our show, sponsored by the Victorious POD. So DFS, for those of you guys that don't know, essentially you just redraft your team every single week. So that way, if for those of you that have drafted a running back in the 1st round and then week 2 he tears his ACL and your season's over, or whatever else, your team's 0-4 and you just hate everything, this gives you a chance to bounce back. You get to try different strategies. You get to pick new people. You basically get a full budget, and every single week based on matchups and performance, players are given different dollar amounts or values. So you just get to allocate your budget however you want to do it. If it makes more sense to you to go for stars and scrubs, or if you want to just do balance, if you want to take a bunch of home swing upsides, that's kind of how it works. So we're going to track it for the entire full season, and then basically give the season-long consistency champions the prize at the end. So as of now, $5 to enter. If you guys want to do it, we wanted to make it as casual and minimal commitment as possible, just for something to play for. Hoping to get 40 to 50 entries in here and see what happens. So if you want to play, message one of the 2 of us or comment on any one of these spots, and I will send you the link myself. We might do some side bets or some other higher pots, depending on how many people get in. But that's the plan. So been wanting to do this one for a while. I really, really like DFS, mostly because I'm probably bad at season long at this point. So it's just something new. Another one, we're bringing back a fan favorite of last year, the NFL Pick'em Challenge. So last year we did it where Tyler brought home the whole thing. I think Nick was close, and someone else, I don't know, but I might have taken 3rd. But basically, where traditional survivor pools, you would pick one team to win week 1. If you win, you move on. We're just doing season long just to keep it interesting for everybody. But rather than one team last year, so everybody could cherry pick the top 16 teams, we're going to pick 2 teams a week. So that way, by week 16, you will have used every single team. So you are going to have to use the Cardinals and the Texans. You choose the week that you think you have a chance to use them, but save the good teams for the end. Use them right away to get off to a good start. Whatever you want to do. We will likely do a buy-in for that one too. But again, if you want to play, let us know. Somebody needs to take down Tyler. That's all I have to say about that.
Good luck.
And then lastly, I wanted to touch base on this one because it's one of the drafts that Tyler and I have both already been in. We are in a best ball league that's been going for a few years. So, Tyler, I'll let you cover this one if you want to just kind of give the folks at home a little TLDR of what best ball is and how it works versus a normal league.
Yeah, so we talked about it a little bit, and the biggest difference between a best ball and a redraft league is the best part about best ball is the best part about anything. You draft, and then you're done. There's no management, there's no maintenance, there's no waivers, there's no trades, there's no nothing. So you draft a deeper team, typically, usually 20, 25 spots compared to the normal, say, 15 to 16 spots. But you don't have to set any lineups. You automatically get your best starting lineup. So you draft 2-3 quarterbacks, you draft whatever 7, 8, 9 wide receivers and running backs, a couple tight ends, etc. And then it just automatically takes the top scores, whatever your optimal scoring lineup is every single week. So you don't have to make start-sit decisions. So strategies wise for something like a best ball team versus a standard redraft is, since you don't have to make those decisions, now you can look at those really, really high upside guys. Mike Williams is the best example most people use for a best ball strategy. You guys see Mike Williams disappear. Sometimes he has 2 catches for 17 yards. Sometimes he has 5 catches for 147 yards and 2 touchdowns. He is the kind of quintessential best ball player because he's going to have those boom weeks. But it's very hard to know, and it can be very frustrating to know when to play him and when to start him in a redraft league. Don't have to worry about that in best ball. Draft your players, set your lineup automatically for you. It just takes those best individuals, no maintenance during the season. So it's a lot of fun. If you've never done one, give it a shot.
Yeah, it's another like casual, in a good way, league where if you're like, I don't play fantasy enough, or I don't want to get in with all these super intense people, it lets you be happy and enjoy it regardless, and you can try some different stuff. Like people we talk about where we're just out on, I'm finding myself drafting them just because I want to see what it happens. Like I specifically have Mike Williams, so that works out. That kind of thing that I would never, ever draft him in a million years in this year's redraft. But it makes for really, really fun when you're like, oh my God, I just caught an 80-yard touchdown. I'm going to win because of that. So we have been in a slow draft for this, which is like 24 rounds. I don't know, something like that long.
Yeah.
And so I guess if you wanted to just kind of, we'll post our team somewhere at some point to show them. But if you wanted to just give like a few quick thoughts on like what has been happening with your team and like what's gone well, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah. So I had kind of a tail end pick. I can't even remember what pick I had. 109, I think is
right behind me.
Yeah, that's right, because you had 108.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll talk through my team, and so it's a full PPR league. So my initial thought going into it was, give me the target hogs, give me all the target monsters. So my first 2 rounds, I got Stephon Diggs and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I certainly couldn't have asked for any better start with 2 wide receivers who could legitimately lead the league in targets. So that was my first 2 rounds, so that felt great. Going into my 3rd round, I needed a running back, so I went with the volume that Najee Harris got. He fell to me in the 3rd round, which was great. So I'll take him as running back 14 off the board, and as my first running back. I got a onesie position with Lamar, so obviously I have that upside. And again, best ball, gotta love that. Not that you're not starting Lamar anyway. I got a couple more safer running backs with volume, rushing and receiving wise, and James Conner and my boy James Cook. And then from there, I just started to load up on receivers. Again, full PPR, so I don't have to pick and choose when to start them. So I just get their best scores every week. So I went really high upside. I went JSN, I went Juju, Chris Godwin, Jacoby Myers, Jameson Williams when he comes back tail end of the year. Zay Jones. So just kind of locked up my running back room and then just went as much high volume as I could in wide receivers and obviously a stud quarterback, and tight end. I just kicked it down the road.
I did the exact opposite because Travis Kelce fell to me at 108, and I found out that basically I like the first 7 guys more, and then that's my cutoff for Kelce this year is 8. I think it drops down to like Diggs and AJ Brown and all those guys are still great, but I think that's the point where I'm like, I gotta go him. So did not want to go the tight end route. This draft for me has gone very out of my comfort zone because it's like full PPR and more receivers, and I basically didn't even look at receiver the first 2 rounds, and then felt like I had to take one in the 3rd with DK Metcalf, who I'm not in love with. I actually like Najee more, but I was like, I can't go to 0 receivers in the first 3. So Tyler's been firking me with some guys on the ones right before my pick every time because I loved Amon-Ra. I wanted Lamar to fall to me. There's a couple others that just have made me sad. So, long story short, I went Kelsey in the first, so that basically meant that I wasn't touching the tight end position for most of the rest of the drafts, just because I don't care how somebody does. If they're outscoring Kelsey, I got bigger problems than that. So I went with Jonathan Taylor at the 205 a day before the whole thing came out with Irsay being on the bus. I still feel like there was the discount because of the holdout with his situation, but before everything kind of exploded. So now with the news that he's requesting a trade, I don't know what's going to happen, but as long as he plays, I feel great getting him where I did. There's extra incentives for running backs in this league too, so I don't hate it. I went with Joe Mixon in the fourth, so another one that I am assuming will play, but God knows what's going to happen. So if both of them play, I'm loving my team. But if I'm missing either one of them, I did not go running back heavy the rest of the way. I went with like Rashad Penny and some dart throw backups with Jalen Warren and J.K. Dobbins behind two guys that are injured. So that's kind of what you start to look for at the end. Like, I don't care about a guy that's going to get me 6 points. You're going for somebody who Najee misses 1 week and then Jalen Warren gets all the touches, and that makes up for Mixon being on bye, whatever. So did that, and then I went very, very heavy wide receiver because I feel like the strategy in best ball is just get a ton of wide receivers. Like I look to have like 9 or 10 wide receivers versus like 6 running backs, just because you want as many chances as possible for like, oh cool, this guy caught a 50-yard touchdown this week and he did better than my wide receiver 1 and 2. Done. So I went quarterback late compared to most everybody in the league, but then I went back to back to back just to make sure that I got it. So I basically had Geno, Daniel Jones, and Kyler Murray, 9, 10, 11. I think if Kyler comes back early enough, he's a QB1 and probably my safest bet. But Geno has a very, very nice floor, and Daniel Jones has upside with rushing, whereas his floor sucks. So I kind of went two opposite sides of the same coin, which made me feel pretty good at quarterback overall, and allowed me to kind of load up on other stuff. So we'll see how it shows out. It's not a draft strategy I would ever normally plan, but best ball kind of makes you shake things up. So that's where we're at, and we're almost done. We got like 3 rounds to go with these stupid 10 to 12 hour clocks. So
we're down to kickers and defenses essentially.
I got to still take my backup to Kelsey at some point for a bye. So we'll see what happens here. Tyler Conklin, I'm coming at you. Yeah, gross. All right, now we're getting into the section I'm most excited for, even above the draft. I don't have a cool soundbite for it, but let's get divisional. It's something that I wanted to add in for a while. Pre-season here. So basically I wanted to have us go through each division and rank where we think everybody's going to finish, because I feel like at the start of the year, every year analysts and fans and everybody alike are like, it's so obvious this is the best 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it always ends up differently. There's always 2 to 3 division winners that are completely out of left field from the previous year. Like half the playoff teams are always different, so it's just, probably not going to get most of these right, but I'm curious to see the discrepancy in like where your and my heads are at. So we have not discussed these whatsoever. We're just going to alternate and see where these teams end up and how many differences we have. So before we start, I just wanted to say, because you and I typically think pretty similar as far as like NFL strength and stuff. How many teams do you think we're going to have in different spots, like out of the 32?
Compared to last year?
No, just each other. Just
totally.
How different are our lists going to be, I should say.
From the 32, I bet you we'll have at least 5 or 6.
Okay, that's fair. I was going to say like 8, but yeah. Okay,
I figured
cool.
6 was my initial thought.
All right, we'll see what happens here. Tyler's gonna run his off first, and I'll put him in, and then we'll go from there.
All right, so kicking off the AFC North, got the Bengals taking home the crown again, and then I've got the Ravens, then I got the Browns, and then I got the Steelers.
Hey, same. Done. The only one I was questioning on was the Browns versus the Steelers, but I believe the Browns slightly take a step up, and I think that Mike Tomlin finally has a losing season. So
that was exactly my rationale. So
weird.
Sorry, everybody else.
Don't worry, Ben. That's not my spicy take that Tomlin has a losing season finally. But starting off with that, we'll let you do the first one, Tyler. So in addition to this, I should have mentioned, we were challenged by one of our loyal listeners, Ben, that he loved all of our takes, but he was like, I don't feel like there's enough that are like out there because I want to disagree with you guys or I want to debate and make me think more. So you asked for spicy. We're giving you spicy.
Spicy.
Coming at you. So at least one per division, each Tyler and I are going to give something that's out of left field. So it's not likely to come true, but it's more just about how we envision certain players, fantasy relevance, and we're going to see if we even come close. And we also don't know what each other's are, so we're going to be kind of reacting to these live.
Yeah. All right, so you want me to go first? All right, so for the AFC North here, Jack, I know you're already not going to like this one. So bring me over to the Steelers, and I'm going to say this guy that I drafted as my RB1, Mr. Najee Harris. Give me him finishing outside the top 20.
You son of a...
Honestly, I get last year they were like, hey, he wasn't healthy the entire season, and now he's back and healthy. And I even saw reports today that they're like, he's our number one guy, so this already doesn't bode well for me. But I can 100% see the path. They love Jaylen Warren, and I think on the contrary to what they do, so he's going as running back 13 right now. I see them mixing in Jaylen Warren a whole lot more to keep Najee healthy. And so if that happens, or for whatever reason he gets dispelled and it's closer to like a 60-40 timeshare than it has before, I can see a path where Najee Harris's inefficiency has been evident. If you haven't, go look up the stats. It's actually kind of ridiculous how inefficient he has been. And again, I understand he was injured, but maybe Najee is just becoming bad. It has very much Zeke and Tony Pollard vibes, where Jaylen Warren is starting to creep up on Najee Harris, and maybe he's starting to get over the hill and whatever you want to say. I could see Jaylen Warren starting to take a lot of that work, and give me Najee Harris falling outside the top 20 this year.
I don't want to play this game anymore. I changed my mind. It makes me sad.
Like that one.
Najee's just, that's the thing, is because honestly, if they just choose to not give him the volume, then the whole house of cards falls apart. But they just always do. So it's like, yeah.
If that volume dries up, he is screwed.
And he was RB5 or something as soon as he came back from injury the last 7 weeks. Yeah. So it's like, it's not only that he was injured and that affected it, but he was so good after he came back from injury. So I don't know. I still am targeting him as one of my like early to mid third round picks, but I totally get the realm where it happens. So, all right, well, let's see. I got two here, so I'll give my one that I'm more locked in on. This one isn't going to seem as much of a bold, spicy take for you because I know you share the opinion on this player to an extent, but I think for other people that aren't thinking about him enough as they should. Keeping with the Steelers, you know where I'm going to go with this one. Deontay Johnson, who we both love, just is, as far as target share and as far as like route percentages and stuff like that, is elite in terms of that. But he didn't score a touchdown last year, which most people that says, oh God, how bad do you have to be to not score a touchdown? To me, it says if he would have scored 4, he jumps up 20 draft spots or wide receiver spots. So I think that he's not as far off as ADP is showing. He's still going very, very late, like post 7th round, which is insane to me. If Kenny Pickett improves even a little bit, I think that's going to make the difference. So I guess my bold official take is that Deontay is going to be top 3 in receptions this year, not just targets, but receptions. And he's going to push for top 15 instead of the 30-plus receiver he was last year. So he's going to be on the border of a wide receiver 1, despite the rise of George Pickens, despite Kenny Pickett's struggles, despite them having a decent run game. I think Deontay Johnson's going to be like pumping up to the low wide receiver 1, high wide receiver 2. So
I love it. Yeah, obviously, I've literally made a video on it that I think that I traded for Deontay Johnson in every dynasty league that I could. Sorry, Foster. 100%. He was just so incredibly unlucky. And when you've already got target share that he has, really that biggest difference. And I think I said it in one of my videos that I'm like, if he scores 5 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns, he literally goes from wide receiver 30 to wide receiver like 17 or something like that. So it's pretty crazy. So I'm 100% with you. If he just gets a little bit luckier essentially in touchdowns, because that's one of the least sticky stats year over year. So if he gets those touchdowns, that the top 15 realm is certainly there.
Yeah, so not that far out. The only other one I won't really go a ton into, just because I was trying to do these and I couldn't stop at just one. I'm like, I'm going to make a bold, crazy take for every
Jack
team.
Is like, do one for each, and he's like, oh yeah, by the way, I did 4.
Yeah, okay. I did one for each position on every team. Is that not what you meant? My only other one for this division was J.K. Dobbins. Going to be a huge bust as a 5th-round pick this year. He's not going to finish as a running back 2 or better. That's my other spicy one.
Interesting.
He's one. Back to Nate's question. He's one of my red flag players. Can't even tell you what I've looked up on him. I've never even considered him on the clock when he's been in that range. I'm like, there's J.K. Dobbins. Cool. So these other guys, like, I'm totally out. So
interesting.
Moving into the AFC South, I will take the start of this one, and then we'll go from there. So, AFC South, I have the Jaguars, as many would expect, likely. Then I have the Titans, Colts, and Texans.
All right, well, this is super fun.
4 for 4. There's going to be other. There's like 2 divisions where I was like,
plenty.
I could see us having 4 different spots. So
Yeah.
that one is probably the most consensus. I was thinking about getting a little spicy with the Colts over the Titans until the whole Jonathan Taylor thing. And I even considered going Texans over Colts now with the chaos, but I just don't see the Texans ever being an above 5-win team just for my lifetime. So that's where we're both at. As far as I'll do the spicy take. I'm so sorry. I'll do the
spicy
take first. Once again, I have 2, so I'll just do one that I believe more in. This one is the more, I guess, out there because I'm going with a record-setting one. So we're talking about one that Tyler has talked about a bunch. So for my AFC South spicy take, I'm talking about Anthony Richardson, who I guess everybody I get the whole hype train on, but I'm not just going to say he's going to be a great value pick or anything fantasy-wise. I'm talking NFL record books here. So he is going to become the second quarterback ever to pass for 3,000 yards in a season and rush for 1,000 yards in a season, with Lamar being the only one ever to do it, and he's going to do it as a rookie. So based on this whole new thing with Jonathan Taylor maybe not even being on the team, they already have named him week 1. I don't care if he throws 20 interceptions. I don't care if he's only got some dud weeks of like 150 yards. They are going to run through him and say, okay, we're going to be bad either way. Let's see what we got. He's going to run so much if Jonathan Taylor's not on the field, and I think he's going to be capable of getting 3,000 yards passing because they're going to be behind so much. So it'll be it's crazy that it's only happened one time, but it's going to be number 2 this season.
I love it. Obviously, I love it. I mean, he's my guy. He's my guy. So I'm all for it. That's fantastic. I could say, again, it's 100% possible. I think it would help him to have Jonathan Taylor there. Again, I think he would hand it off more just because, again, I can see more of those kind of designed scramble plays if he's not there. Start to try to push the ball down the field. And if you've looked at any training camp videos, apparently he just throws dots left and right with some of those deep balls that you've seen. So it looks pretty. So for mine, for the AFC South, this is one that Jack and I know are completely both out on, and I don't know that we can really tell you why. But
I already know.
Yeah, you already know. Dameon Pierce. Currently, he's going as a running back 18, and that just boggles my mind. They brought in this guy named Devin Singletary, who's literally never finished outside the top like 27 as far as running back goes. Devin Singletary is going to be a problem for Dameon Pierce. He is incredibly efficient. He has such better receiving metrics than Dameon Pierce. I think this is 100% going to be closer to a split backfield, and I think Dameon Pierce potentially doesn't get the goal line work as well, and I think Dameon Pierce falls outside of the top 24, and he's barely going to be a flex for a lot of individuals. He's certainly not going to be an RB2 or an RB1 in my book, and even a mid RB2, I don't think there's any way. I think he's probably going to return flex value, and people who draft him at RB18 are going to be really mad this year.
This whole spicy take thing is just bringing up more of my answers I should have given for Nate's red flag players. Again, I don't know why I hate him so much, but I just hate Dameon Pierce this year. So he's another one I'm just like, I don't care who's available. I'll take a quarterback when I don't want to. I'll take one of those middle-of-the-road tight ends like the Goddards or whatever. I don't know if they're close, but I'll switch my draft strategy for them. I'll take a 4th running back instead of him. Fine, but like just not – I can't do it with Dameon Pierce. So I don't know.
Do it.
Yeah. My other one, quick, rounding it out here, was also Dameon Pierce, which is why I laughed in the first place. I said Dameon Pierce drafted early in the 5th is not a top 30 running back. So about the same thing. We're both basically out on him. So we'll just leave it as that. That's not only are we picking the same division standings, we're picking the same spicy takes. So not that spicy. All right, AFC East. I'll let Tyler go.
So AFC East, I'm probably going to go the same here again, Jack, just because I know how we feel. So I got the Bills, Dolphins, Jets, and then Patriots.
I was so excited to pick Dolphins over Jets, thinking that would be like a bold take, and yeah, that's the same I had. So
I get it. I get the thought process of the Jets and coming in, but I'm like, if Tua stays healthy, and I get Aaron Rodgers is very good, but Breece Hall is going to take some time to get back. If you look at their early season schedule, it is absolutely brutal. The Dolphins also have a pretty hard schedule, don't get me wrong. But I think the Dolphins have enough firepower and a good enough defense to really compete with the Bills to win the division. So I do think the Bills still win the division. I think they win out and take it, but I think the Dolphins will be right on their heels. Jets slightly behind them, maybe by a win or two.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I could easily see the Jets passing the Dolphins based on the fact that they have an easier schedule. So that's what concerns me is I think the Jets have more of a cakewalk. I think the Dolphins are a better team when healthy. So like, do I see a world where the Jets end up 11-6 and the Dolphins are 10-7 and both make the playoffs? Yes, but then I think the Dolphins are a bigger threat. So it's kind of just, I don't know. We'll see. It'll be close between those two, and I think the top and the bottom are pretty much guaranteed. So take it away with your spicy take.
I'm not going to lie. I barely have a spicy take for this one. I went back and forth by so many individuals in this division, and I was like, I don't, and I really tried to make kind of negative cases for all mine, so I didn't really do a positive case for almost anybody. So this was the only positive because I was like, I'm not going to be like, Josh Allen finishes number 1, Stephon Diggs finishes on top. Like, I didn't care. I'm like, I love Waddle, I love Tyreek Hill, so I really kind of tried to do negative. So I went just kind of outside and I went Juju. So Juju's right now being drafted as wide receiver 43. I think he leads that team in targets by an absolute landslide, and he steps right into that Jacoby Myers role, becomes that short area target for Mac Jones, and I think he becomes a usable flex piece, if not better, for you every single week. I think he finishes just outside the top 24, and so I said top 30. So I bet you he is a startable wide receiver for somebody going at wide receiver 43 for the entire year.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I think he's undervalued right now. I don't know that he'll end up feeling like somebody I can confidently start as a flex every week, but I think he'll probably return value based on that. So
I think it'd be good.
Don't worry, I only have one for this division, but it's another one of.
It was a hard division to do.
It was. There weren't a lot of like great people I felt confident on, except for the obvious elites. So,
right.
One I just went basically more off the like he's going to shatter his career numbers so far. So I'm going with one that I've already talked about previously. Was a my guy of my own. Talking about Tua, I think. My bold prediction for the AFC East is that Tua, by the end of the season, gets MVP votes, a.k.a. he stays healthy. I'm not saying he's winning the MVP. Let's not get carried away. He stays healthy. He leads the Dolphins to probably second in the division, but for sure I'm expecting a wild card place here. And he's going to shatter his previous career highs in passing. So I have him down for breaking 4,200 yards total. His career best is 3,500, so that's why it's a bit of a bold one. It's up there, a chunk higher. And then his career best for touchdowns is 25. I'm saying 35 total touchdowns this year. So he's going to jump up a chunk. All it takes is health. I think if I'm wrong on health, it is what it is because you can't really predict that anyways. But I think he's going extremely undervalued currently. I think this team is going to ride with him. And the fact that he has Tyreek and Jalen Waddle to just give the ball to and let them run forever can pad his numbers very, very well. But Tua looked extremely good before the unfortunate concussion issues last year. So I am still a believer, and I think his season is set up to shatter some career bests. So that's where I'm at.
I like it.
All right. Last of the AFCs. We'll see if we get one different team here. Mm-hmm. Probably not. Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, Raiders.
Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, Raiders.
Cool. I was hoping you'd maybe pick the Broncos higher because you like them, but that one was the easiest one for me to pick. Yeah.
That was the easiest one by far.
Yeah. I don't know if it makes a difference, but I did say playoff teams. I think we've kind of already talked about them, but rounding out the AFC, it's been Bengals, Ravens, Jaguars, Bills, Dolphins, Chiefs, Chargers. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, felt pretty easy. Obviously, you're not picking against the Super Bowl champs, but I think the Chargers are a solid team too. So I'm excited to see what happens there. Broncos, I feel like, are kind of on that bubble of like them, the Dolphins, and the Jets all could kind of be the last wild card, but I think the other ones are kind of locked up. So see what happens. I got my bold take now. I've got a couple, so I'm going to I'll do my other ones after yours. They're all pretty much on the same level of medium spicy. So I am going to say a guy that we both have talked about liking. I'm saying straight up that Quentin Johnson outscores Mike Williams, and not only that, but is a better deep ball target as a rookie than Mr. Deep Ball himself, Mike Williams.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah, so
I like it. I
think Mike Williams is going to find himself kind of squeezed out to an extent where like all the shallow targets are Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler, and Mike Williams has been great deep, but he has struggles staying healthy. He's not as explosive anymore, and Quentin Johnson has already looked very, very explosive, and he's a deep ball guy. So, like, it's going to be one of those of, like, we brought in a better version of you to do it, and you're not as young enough to be able to. So he's going to be looking for, like, the middle targets, and that just doesn't happen. So I think Quentin Johnson has the path as the rookie wide receiver to be, like, the biggest impact despite a crowded room. And I think Quentin Johnson's going to make some highlight plays where you're going to be like, that looks like what Mike Williams used to do 2 to 3 years ago.
Yeah, I like it. Fantastic. So for me, it might be the spiciest one of my list. So I'm going to say we see the downfall of Mr. Davante Adams. I am going with we finally see the potential age cliff of Davante. I think the QB change is incredibly massive for him. So many distractions with the Josh Jacobs thing. And if and when Josh Jacobs comes back and he plays for this team, talk about somebody who they just want to run into the ground and then get him the hell out of here. So I am going to go with Davante. Certainly does not return that wide receiver 5 value that he's going at the tail end of the first. They have an incredibly tough schedule. He has always been a touchdown outlier. He scored like 14 touchdowns last year. Jimmy G is not Derek Carr when it comes to throwing the deep ball. Davante Adams had a lot of deep ball touchdowns last year. He is a short area thrower you can notice that from his entire time in San Fran. Maybe he hits that type of threshold in PPR, but if you think of him in standard leagues, but if I go standard or PPR, I think Davante Adams finishes as a fringe wide receiver 1. I think he finishes anywhere between 10 to 12 and potentially even outside that wide receiver 1 range. And I certainly don't see him returning value as a wide receiver 5.
Yeah, if he finishes as a wide receiver 2, that would be very, very spicy. So I like that one a lot. Age happens quick. You don't see it with elite guys that play past most, but it can happen, and I hate Jimmy G. So as bad as Carr was, he's worse.
Yep.
2 other ones for me. Actually, we have one about every single team. So I had the Chargers first, you had the Raiders, I got a Bronco, and I got a Chiefs. So none of them are feeling left out. One of my boys here that I'm a big fan of, obviously both in Dynasty, but just in general, Jerry Jeudy's going to finish as a top 15 wide receiver this year with the Sean Payton joining and the Russell Wilson bounce back. He had just under 1,000 yards already last year, and he had 6 touchdowns, which doesn't seem like a lot, but Russell Wilson only threw 16. So he had 6 out of 16. If we just bump that up to 25 and he stays on the same pace, even if he only ends up at like 9, that's still very, very good. Like, that's enough to bump you up to, he was like a low wide receiver 2 last year. That's enough to be up there. So, and I think Russell getting slightly better, Jeudy can have more than 1,000 yards. They just gutted their entire wide receiver room with injuries, so it's only Cortland Sutton, and that's it. And they're not going to – I know Javonte Williams is being said as he's being healthy, but I think they're still going to take their time with him. So I think it's going to be a lot more targets to go around. In a tough division, they're going to have to throw a lot. Jeudy is just one of the best route runners in the league, and I think he's kind of like a Deontay Johnson where he earns targets and yet is underrated because he doesn't get the chance to do a lot with them. So I'm calling for him to be one of the big breakouts at wide receiver this year. He's in his 3rd or 4th season. He's still extremely young and is already known as one of the best route runners. So big on him. Not super spicy, but calling for a close to wide receiver 1 finish, which is pretty good based on how big of a dumpster fire the Broncos looked like last year. So, and then lastly, speaking earlier of everybody just wanting a Chiefs running back to be relevant for a change, Isaiah Pacheco doesn't finish as a top 24 running back. I don't think it matters. I would even say he's not going to finish as a top 30. I think Jerick McKinnon wouldn't surprise me if he outscores Pacheco straight up, but I didn't want to go that crazy. And I think Clyde's going to hang around just enough to be a great best ball target, shouting out back to that again, but enough to weigh things in. And it's kind of like the Chiefs wide receivers where it's just like they're fine using 3 to 4 guys, and they don't care if none of you matter. So I'm out on him for that reason as well. And there's like one of my only negative takes so far.
Yeah, talk about an individual who I'm like, I have 0.0% clue where Pacheco is even going in his ADP. You want to talk about a guy who I've just been completely out on. If I see his name, I've never even once considered it even close. The Chiefs backfield used to be like, yes, an Andy Reid running back is what you're going for. And now it's just like, we don't care. Patrick Mahomes throws the ball 4,000 times and throws for over 5,000 yards every single year.
And that's not going to change.
And that's not going to change.
All right, well, 16 for 16 so far.
Yes.
NFC, I expect there to be at least a couple, but
as well.
That's about it. Moving into NFC North, I'll let you go first.
NFC North. So I really wanted to play my Vikings fandom and put them to win the division, but I've had enough bad Minnesota seasons that I can see the regression. So I went Lions, Vikings, and I went Bears and Packers.
We finally have differences. And it's not just one either.
Oh, I believe you. Yeah, I know.
I went Vikings, which has somehow, other than Minnesota, become the spicy pick. Everybody's just like penciling it in with the Lions, and it's like, I get they had a huge step up, but like, and I get the Vikings regression with the whole, single digit points, wins, and whatever, but I don't think it's going to be that much. I think they're going to be very, very even teams. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up both around 9 to 10 wins, but I'm still going Vikings and then the Lions, but I actually have the Packers over the Bears. I think Jordan Love's not going to be great, but he's going to be better than people think, and I think their defense is solid, and I think they're going to turn into a running team that can survive. So they get technically a worse, like an easier schedule than they've had in previous years, and I think looking at their schedule, there's 7 to 8 pretty winnable games there. So that's where I'm going.
Cool.
Finally, some differences. I'll let you do your
spicy
take.
Fantastic. I'm going to the obvious hype train that Jack was hyping up earlier, and I'm going to Justin Fields. So I think he takes a massive step forward as a passer with DJ Moore there. But the spiciest of all is I think he breaks Lamar's record. I think he breaks Lamar's rushing record of his 1,206 yards, rushes for 6 to 8 touchdowns, and I think he finishes in that top 3 at the QB position. I think he dethrones one of the Mahomes, Allens, and Hurtses of the world, and he puts the world on notice.
That is exactly what I was saying before. Give me Justin Fields every time in the 5th over those 3. I don't know that I'll end up getting him anyways, but like I'm taking him over them in a heartbeat. So definitely could see it if obviously Anthony Richardson doesn't break the record first, but I could see Fields doing
let
it.
Those
so
two compete. They both get 1,300 yards.
Correct. Yep. There you go. All right. These two, I feel like I started to get more spicy as the list went down. So I'm actually kind of proud of these two. But first one I've got for the Packers, Aaron Jones is being outscored by A.J. Dillon this year.
Ooh.
That one I felt very, very spicy. But my belief is that the Packers learn quickly that while Jordan Love isn't terrible and he's worth bringing back on their 5th-year option, he's not good enough to be a contender this year. And so these diehard Packer fans, and trust me, I'm married to one, and I have relatives and in-laws of all of them. They're all like, "We'll be fine." I'm like, "That's because you've been spoiled by Hall of Fame quarterbacks for 20 years. Like, what happens when he's just serviceable and not even bad? If he's just middle of the road, then the rest of your team, like that's so." My belief is they figure out about halfway through the season, okay, we're not what we thought we were before, and they start turning into more of a rebuild, and they focus on the run game, which Aaron Jones is great as a receiving weapon, and he's been good in the running game too. But A.J. Dillon is a tank and is much more efficient on the ground, getting you the yards that you need, and he's going to get more of the touchdowns. So I believe this is going to be kind of a, not to the same extreme, but a Jamal Williams situation where like Dillon will score more because he scores all the touchdowns, and they aren't putting up high scoring games. So it's just going to be kind of a ground and pound, try to control the clock and win the game. So very spicy because we've all been like waiting, I feel like the last 2 to 3 years for A.J. Dillon to be exploding or for them to let Aaron Jones walk and Dillon to be the guy, and it hasn't happened. But I'm saying that this is finally the year that it does. And then the other one, I just wanted to have some rookie fun here, but mostly because there's not a whole lot of other options beyond their alpha in Detroit. So with Jamal Williams being suspended and with the rest of the receiving core just looking terrible other than Jahmyr Gibbs now, Sam Laporta, rookie tight end, is going to catch 10 touchdowns in Detroit this year because Goff throws it a ton. 10 is a high number. I wanted to go for somewhere that seemed like a little bit more unreasonable. For context, last year, only Kelsey and Kittle had 10 or more touchdowns. But I think it's going to be this weird thing where I'm not expecting him to come out and be 80 to 100 yards and like Hawkinson 2.0. But I think Goff is going to throw it enough, and they are going to have to put up a lot of points where he'll just end up kind of being the number 2 until Jameson Williams comes back. And there's no guarantee that he's even going to be the second guy when he does. So that's my other interesting one. I think Laporta could kind of be like the sneaky rookie tight end that people aren't expecting to be the best option year one.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the AJ Dillon one for sure. I mean, he is one of those kind of 0 RB targets every single year. In my opinion, if you go wide receiver heavy, AJ Dillon has been like running back 26 or 27 like the last 2 or 3 years. He's going to get you consistent flex value, and so I could certainly see him taking over. And Sam Laporta, just bet on Iowa tight ends. He'll be fine.
That's the other thing too. That doesn't hurt.
Right.
All right, moving into the NFC South one, this was the most painful to have to try to figure out. So I'm genuinely curious where we end up here. I felt like it was very clear the Saints were 1, so that's what I went with.
Okay.
Okay. Number 2, I actually went with the Falcons. Number 3, I went Panthers, and number 4, I went Bucks.
The Falcons win the division.
Oh my Lord! That's your spicy take, right? You don't even need a fantasy
That's
one.
right. 18 of the last 20 years, somebody has went worst to first. Why not in the shittiest division of all time? Give me the guys who went 8 and 9, 7 and 10, 7 and 10, 7 and 10. Falcons take that division.
I don't feel bad now having them in my 2, so that's good.
I know. Falcons, Saints, Bucks, Panthers.
Oh yeah, we're very different. Yeah, okay. We flip flop 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 basically. So
that's right.
Yeah, I like the Saints a lot. I think they're poised just with their defense and everything. But Panthers and Bucks is a toss up for me. I think the Panthers have some decent pieces, and it all depends on Bryce Young. But that's about it. So I will do one of my spicy takes. I got 3 of them, and I know I couldn't stop. I'll leave one of them. I got 2 of them. I'm gonna save my crazy one for the end because Tyler's gonna go off air when he hears it. But my less spicy one. Chris Olave builds on his rookie year last year and has 40 more catches than he did last year. So going from 72 to 112. Ooh. And finishes as a wide receiver 1, if I didn't say that already.
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, am I doing mine now?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I want to end with mine.
Right. Okay, good, because you might turn your mic off after this one.
Oh, no.
Miles Sanders, currently going as running back 17. He goes from the best O-line he's ever played behind to a middle of the pack offensive line, maybe back end. TD regression back under the double digits. I don't think his receiving work takes a step forward. He's not that good of a receiver. He ends up outside the top 24 of running backs. That's what you get. I don't think I get it. I get he was the alpha in Philly, and they didn't throw the ball to the running backs a lot, blah, blah, blah. I don't know that they're going to do that in Carolina as well. That worse O-line, I think, is going to impair him a lot. You know I hate Miles Sanders. I've always hated Miles Sanders.
You drafted him in our last mock draft.
I did. But again, I got him way later than he should have been going. But I can see the path where he finishes. They got other pieces there, and he finishes outside of the top 24. So I said fringe, but we'll make it more spicy. And I say he doesn't finish as an RB2.
All right. You've called down the thunder.
I know it's coming now.
Get ready for the boom.
No, I know it's coming.
Let me just preface this one here before I get canceled.
No
prefacing. All right, fuck it. Tyler Algier outrushes Bijan Robinson this year. I'll see you tomorrow night. Let me just explain this a little bit where I'm coming from. I'm not saying he's going to outperform him. I'm not going to say he's going to out yardage him total. I'm not going to say he's going to out fantasy produce him. Strictly on the ground, Algier somehow ends up with more rushing yards. I think they're going to use Bijan a lot in the receiving game, and I think it's going to surprise people that he's getting like as many routes run as carries in a game. I think it's going to be crazy how much they use him in the receiving game. But I also think that everybody has just written off Algier, which makes me like enjoy having him as like an 11th, 12th round pick dart throw kind of thing, because I think he's just going undrafted at this point other than a handcuff. And this dude, as a rookie, so he's like still young and has like decent untapped potential, broke 1,000 yards and had a 4.9 yards per carry. Everybody talks about the 1,000 yards, but they're like, they didn't have anybody else, and they just kind of gave him the ball a la Najee as volume. 4.9 yards per carry as basically what an undrafted rookie is insane. Like, he did so good. So while I don't think they're going to be like, well, maybe we're not going to use the guy we took in the top 10 pick, I definitely think Bijan is the plan. Yeah. But I think that this team, like Tyler talked about, is pushing for a division chance this year in a terrible division. And I don't think they're going to want to run him into the ground and get their star franchise player hurt. So I can see them spelling him a lot more than people expect year one. So that's the reason I'm coming from saying that. Do I think it's likely to happen? Definitely not. But the reason I'm putting the spicy take out is just to get people to talk about the fact that, like, don't be surprised if Bijan's not getting this 25-plus touches a game thing. I think they're going to work him in, and I think they're going to want to keep him healthy down the stretch and see what happens. So for that reason, going my most spicy take of all.
Yes. No, I love it. I totally understand. I Algier looked great, but for me, I give that credit to the Falcons' offensive line, which is legitimately one of the best in the NFL. So, and again, the thought process for me, and again, Bijan probably going to my team at 7, running behind that offensive line, the talent of Bijan compared to the potential talent of Tyler Algier, I think is going to be ridiculous. So I certainly understand, and I think Tyler Algier will spell him more often than not, or they'll put them both on the field much more often than we think. So I can see it, but yeah, that one's real spicy if that one comes true.
Yeah, that's by far that was just doing it for the clip's sake to be able to put that out there. So again, not that I'm like calling for this to happen, but the points of these spicy takes is to show you guys that like there's a world where these things are more likely than everybody's expecting, and everyone's just thinking Bijan's the second coming of Barry Sanders. He's going to be RB1 overall. I think he's going to be so good on a touch, like per touch basis, and he's going to be great scoring wise, and he's going to get a ton of their touchdowns and a ton of receptions. But I don't think he's going to have like insane volume intentionally. So
Sure.
That's where I'm coming from with that. Can't wait to be roasted when Algier gets like a touch in the first 4 weeks. All right.
We'll see.
NFC East. You start with this one.
NFC East. So I went to Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, Commanders.
Yep, same.
All right. And then for my bold prediction for this one, I don't know that you'll like this one either. Tony Pollard.
Why are you targeting all of my dynasty running backs?
Because, Jack, your team is too good, and I got to cut you down somewhere. Started with the mock draft, and we're going to finish with all your players. Going as RB7, he finished with the most fantasy points over expected per PFF last year. 55 points over expected. He had 9 touchdowns compared to an expected of 5 touchdowns, 3 receiving touchdowns, which is pretty insane, honestly, for a running back, versus 1.7 expected. They've already come out and said they're going to limit his workload to keep him healthy. And on top of that, Tony Pollard is horrendous at the goal line. He is absolutely terrible at the goal line. So I think that is going to affect him massively. And I think he gets enough volume that he's still plenty usable. And obviously he's not going to like be running back 24 or anything like that. He's too good of a talent and too explosive. But I see Tony Pollard finishing as closer to like a 12 to 14 running back than running back 7. For me, I think I've got to be out on that mid-second round draft pick. So I've got other targets, and I'm trying to get a stud running back in the first round and a stud receiver in the second round, or vice versa. And Tony Pollard, for whatever reason, especially in the middle of the second round, has not been one of those targets for me.
Yeah, that's fair. Ironically, he's one of my targets in the late second round, just for that same reason, because I'm essentially locked into taking the lead wide receiver first, so our teams are kind of flip-flopped. So it's just kind of how it falls. But as far as who's there, it's like Ramondres and Breece Halls, and I would go Tony Pollard just for the upside with that offense and being the only guy now. But I totally see a world where like Ramondres is the better pick there. So for mine, we talked about this guy a bunch. This is the only one that I kind of doubled back on the my guys and the takes from before, but it's just because we loved him so much. Darren Waller, who we're talking about as a value, he steals and walks away with the tight end 2 crown this year. So anybody not named Kelsey, he passes Mark Andrews, anybody else. I think he's going to end up being the new guy where they bump him back up into that group of like, okay, it's Kelsey and then Andrews / Waller next year's. So that's my spicy one there. And then my other super gross one, which apparently is becoming more and more possible based on all these preseason insanity reports and stuff. Number 1 Eagles running back, Kenny Gainwell. What?
Yeah.
I think it'll just end up being another weird Chiefs situation where it's like, how did Jerick McKinnon finish ahead of everybody? It'll be Penny getting hurt and then also Swift getting hurt once Penny's healthy, and Gainwell's just like, I'm still here. I'm getting the RB2 touches every game, but I'm going to be consistent and get a few stupid touchdowns. He'll be the guy that gets like the random 3 touchdown week, and you're like, what the fuck just happened? So that's my gross take of, you won't see it happening during the season, but by the end of the season, you'll look at the scores and be like, what? So
yeah, it's gonna be weird. I'm not touching that backfield. Not at all.
All right, last one here, rounding these out. NFC West, I've got probably consensus: 49ers, Seahawks, Rams, Cardinals.
Oh no, I just kidding. That's what I have.
Okay. I was like, people are talking about the Rams bouncing back, so I can see people
No.
putting them above the Seahawks, but
No, their defense
Cardinals
is
are definitely bottom.
terrible.
Yeah.
Their defense is horrendous. It's not the same defense of the Rams you thought that it used to
Right.
be. I'm sorry, Aaron Donald just isn't.
He's not enough when you triple team him. So
Correct.
one that's not spicy at all if you've been listening to my takes so far, but Hollywood Brown, PPR wide receiver 1 in points per game basis. I think he's going to easily be like a top 10 wide receiver, assuming he plays. That's why I left the points per game in there. But even without Kyler, we still don't have a timetable, which makes me not happy. It would be nice to know if it was like, 6 or less games or more than that or whatever. But I think even without that, he's just going to get peppered. So while he might not have a ton of scoring chances and he might not be putting up those 100-plus yard games a ton, I think he's going to get 8 to 10 targets at least every single week, and there's going to be weeks with more. So big on that one, and then I'll let you do yours before I do my second.
Yeah, so I tried to mix in a tight end here. So George Kittle right now going at tight end 5. Give me him finishing. It's so hard because he has such smash weeks. So this could just be wrong simply because he has 2 good weeks. But George Kittle is going to be one of the most maddening tight ends to own this year. And I'm certainly not drafting him at wherever he's being drafted, 4th, 5th round, probably 5th, 6th, essentially, right around Kyle Pitts. He's an amazing blocker. He's an amazing NFL tight end. I went back and looked at PFF. He has run double the amount of pass block routes, essentially what you want to call him. He's been inline blocking for 45 pass routes last year compared to Mark Andrews' 1, which is also absurd. I think it was Kyle Pitts is like 4 or something like that. But George Kittle is an amazing blocker. They're going for a Super Bowl run. They're going to want to keep Brock Purdy healthy. So I think he's going to continue to block, and he's, again, incredibly good at that. Also, he's got incredible opportunity for TD regression. He was 52 points over expected fantasy points. He scored 11 touchdowns last year. Again, I get all of those came at the back half of the season with Brock Purdy. So everyone's like, well, he's healthy the whole season. He's going to be great. I think, again, he blocks enough to limit that upside. He was only expected to score 6 touchdowns. So while he's going to have massive weeks, those off weeks are going to be absolutely brutal. And I could see him finishing closer to like tight end 10 would be my guess. He might, at the end of the year, you look at it and see tight end 6 or 7, but you're going to see 2, 4, 1, 18, 2, 4, 22, 23, 3. It's going to be frustrating. So for me, I'm out on George Kittle this year.
Yeah, I agree. It's an injury issue with him every single year, and it's just another one of those situations where it's like he might be solid, but you're taking him in like the 5th round again when there's other good options there, and it's one of those mid tight end things where it's like either go Kelsey or maybe Andrews in the early 3rd, or just wait. Like it's just not worth the other guys that are going to be starters for you. So I'm in on that one. My other one, I had to put this in because of the jersey that I'm wearing, which I'm in love with this year, these neon green Seahawks ones. Sick. But I don't even like the team. I just had to get it because I love this player and because I love the colors. But my last spicy take is a 2-parter, but it's just called Rookies Run This Team. JSN is going to out-target DK and Tyler Lockett.
Ooh.
Spicy. Not saying he's going to out-receive, and you're not going to say he's going to out-yardage gained, but he's going to out-target them because he's going to work in his spot, which is very, very different than DK's, and he's going to get a lot of targets. I think he's going to make an impact early. So while it might not feel great to be starting any of those 3 because they're going to take away from each other, I think he's going to hit their ground running and be a decent 3rd option and probably work in the wide receiver 2, or the 2 on the team by the end of the year. So I think he's going to get a lot of targets. And then my other parter, Zach Charbonnet, especially with news that Kenneth Walker continues to linger with these injuries, whatever's going on in the lower body you talked about last episode, that's always bad for a running back. Charbonnet is getting work now, and he's essentially healthy. They said his injury was indefinite, and indefinite meant like a day and a half, and he was back. So he seems good, which is great for rookies, and having the veteran ahead of him miss time is even better. So my other 2-parter is Zach Charbonnet is going to outrush Kenneth Walker this year. Don't know whether, depending on how much Kenneth Walker misses or if he comes back by week 1. Again, don't know that I'm calling for him to just outproduce him total, but I think he will end up outrushing him. I think they will like Walker or like Charbonnet on the ground more. And I wouldn't be surprised if Charbonnet, I didn't want to be bold and say Charbonnet is going to outproduce Bijan too, but I think Charbonnet will outproduce another rookie running back on the ground in Gibbs. I think Charbonnet will have more rushing yards than Gibbs this year. Again, same situation as Bijan. I think they're going to use the crap out of Gibbs as a receiver. and Montgomery's going to steal him. But don't be surprised if by the end of the year, Charbonnet somehow ends up as the running back 2 over Gibbs as far as rushing. Over Gibbs, over A-Chain, over Kendre Miller. I think he's going to have the path that's working out very, very well for him now with Kenneth Walker pushed to the side. So
yeah, totally fair. I think the biggest thing with that one is they're going to use Charb as a receiver a lot because Kenneth Walker's a horseshit receiver. Like he's terrible. Charb is a great receiver. So I can see where again, so out rush would be even spicier because I think he's definitely.
Yeah, I guess I should have said out yardage him total. Yeah.
I get you. The only other ones I had just kind of in the back of my head, but I'm like, if somebody wants a Commander's take, give me Antonio Gibson 1,000,000% over Brian Robinson. They're literally going right next to each other. Antonio Gibson's going to have a resurgent year, and I think he's going to finish as an RB2.
Just had a touchdown tonight.
Did he? Nice.
Yeah.
I think he's going to outproduce Brian Robinson. I think the passing game work is going to elevate him to so much more fantasy relevant stat line every week than Robinson.
I like that. I'm definitely.
And I wanted to do a Tyler Lockett falls off the age cliff as well, just because he's been kind of that 15 to 18. But then I went in his ADP. I'm like, he's still going as wide receiver 29. So I'm like, I can't even be mad at the guy. Like
he's undervalued every year.
Exactly. I'm like, I can't be mad. I can't say he's not going to finish as wide receiver 15 to 17 like he's done for the last 6 years because he's still getting drafted as wide receiver 29. You'll probably be okay. He might finish at 29.
Right. Well. There's our spicy takes rounding it out. That's got to be some good ones in there to clip and then laugh at ourselves a few months from now. So if we even hit on a couple of the spicier ones, I'll be happy. It's some of these seem pretty likely. They're probably more like consensus spicy, but some of them we're stretching for it. So
yeah,
something fun. Ben, hopefully you enjoyed it. The one person that's calling for spicy stuff.
True. So as we get everything wrapped up here, really just want to say appreciate everybody listening as always. If you have any questions that you want to send our way, send them to Jack or I on YouTube as we start doing these shorts. Please, by all means, like, comment, subscribe for us. I'm trying to get to 200 subscribers here by the end of the NFL season. We're at 115 right now. Started the season with 103, so we've already got whatever that is, 12 on top of that. So really, really appreciate people that do take the time to like, comment, subscribe. Really helps our videos. We really enjoy the content. If you guys have something that you want to see these videos progress, feel free. Let us know. We're excited to do it. Reminder, we'll send out that DFS link. We'll put it in the description for the video as well. So if you want to join that, $5 season long, can win yourself some money. We'll review and recap some of the teams here every week. So it's just something fun. So we appreciate everyone listening as always. And until next time, Pod Squad. See you later.
Thank you for listening to the Victorious POD podcast. Follow us on YouTube at the Victorious POD.